In Tales of the Neon Sea, you play as a cyborg detective, Rex, and occasionally also as a stray cat, William. In this cyberpunk world, sentient robots and humans live together, but constant tension reigns due to both prejudice and an old war. Yet, Rex doesn't mind robots. In fact, he used to be rather close with one. Back when he was an officer, Rex was the only one who would accept having a robot partner. Their camaraderie led to them becoming a renowned team. Their partnership did eventually end in tragedy, though. Rex became severely injured on an investigation. His partner sacrificed himself to save Rex by using his own robotic body. He saved Rex's life by cybernetically enhancing him in the field. As a result of that rapid robotic rescue, Rex is now highly mechanical himself, to a level that isn't even technically legal. But due to Rex's history as an excellent crime fighter, the law looks the other way in his case. His unique modifications are a secret, but he's not doing well at the beginning of the game. It's up to the player to both help him to get better and to solve a dangerous mystery. The story and the gameplay. At the start of the game, Rex is no longer the high achiever that he once was. His triumphs and glories are in his past. He became an alcoholic who doesn't maintain his own augments. He lives alone in his dilapidated body, in his dilapidated home. It's filled with junk and random expensive things because he's also a former rich kid from an illustrious family who takes his things for granted. As such, the items in his home vary widely. Ancient masks, broken machines, provocative posters of women which he enjoys, an ancient sword used as a bathroom towel rack, and so on. He's also a loner who doesn't interact regularly with many people either. He has a robot maid/butler who he's not kind to, and a stray cat wanders by occasionally. On top of all of that, his alcoholism's so bad that he has a special station to help him function. At it, he combines macamides, a prescription painkiller, and something called worry-free herb. Then he cooks all of this together and downs it. Considering that he's using a highly effective painkiller regularly, depending on this to support his alcohol abuse, he's also a drug addict as well as a drunk. However, despite his problems, he does still have some friends in his life. He doesn't see them often, and they encourage his alcoholism when they do see him. They invite him out to a bar and pay for his drinks, laughing about how much they'll have to spend on booze because they know he has a serious problem, which the game's writing doesn't take seriously. I didn't find Rex to be a likable protagonist or any of the other characters to be particularly likable. There just wasn't much to get attached to. The cat, who's sometimes controlled by the player, is a cute animal, but other than that, it didn't have much going for it. Meanwhile, there were a lot of background elements that I didn't like. Women kept being shown this way in the game. It was a repetitive element. It was even on the city bus. And I mean, fine, ads often show women in objectifying ways, but it felt like overkill to have it all over the place and nothing objectifying men. That targeting and advertisements stretched believability. Men already get their abs shown in ads. Heck, Abercrombie had shirtless models for a while, and makeup's being pushed at dudes too. For example, it's not as weird for a guy to wear nail polish as it was 50 years ago. There might be comments in certain areas, but it's definitely not going to be as bad as back then. So when the year's supposed to be 2140, which is 119 years away, the idea that women would become more objectified than today and be either naked or in bikinis everywhere in ads and dress in halter tops and crop tops in their daily lives, but men would go in the reverse direction and actually never be portrayed in ads as anything other than dignified and modest and still dress pretty much the same. It's weird. Well, sexist. It all felt weirdly backward for a setting that's supposed to be 119 years in the future. And okay, maybe the devs were going for an old detective novel style of feel, where the men are dashing, cool, a tad dark, cynical, and the women are sexy dames. But if so, then the game was coming up short on that sort of tone. It had an old view of the future for women, but that was about it as far as old views went. Rex himself contradicted the typical old school detective. Instead of being cynical, dark, dashing, or witty, Rex frequently seemed flippant, jovial, and dopey. And although he was supposed to be washed up, instead of pity or scorn, serious issues were treated by the writing as if they were nothing. As if addiction was just a silly personality quirk as opposed to a gritty, serious topic. None of that felt noir or dark in any way, so that wasn't old school. And I didn't think that the tone shift, which was trying to be silly, was very funny either. It was just a weird departure from the genre's norms, and given that other stuff wasn't shifted away from, the overall tone wound up seeming awkward to me and messy. Meanwhile, references to popular media were everywhere and also disrupted that idea of an old school vibe. There were references to Inspector Gadget, One Piece, Spirit Spirited Away, and so on. These Easter egg references did make things seem more lighthearted, yet even these lighthearted background elements of silliness weren't consistent. Sometimes background elements randomly tried to make a sad philosophical point instead of being lighthearted, such as the bit about the dog dying, or a friendship between children being broken by prejudice. Including Easter eggs in some moments, such as Yubaba having robot prejudice, was also strange. All of this meant that its sense of atmosphere was all over the map, which resulted in a messy blob of a tale instead of a tapestry. Mixing humor and darkness can work well if it all blends right and seems soulful. But here, the delivery just seemed both random and poor. But the worst problem wasn't all of that. It was in another area, pacing. The plot's pacing is awful. When the game begins, then there's an immediate threat to Rex's life. This sets a high amount of tension and danger as an intro to the game, because Rex can die immediately if you don't figure out the controls and what the game wants you to do fast enough. If he dies, then you start back at square one. You get to try again, but at the same point there's an urgency to what you have to do. But a rule of writing well is that if you choose to start with action, then it's supposed to give the reader a sense of what's to come. A story starting with action builds tension and momentum, but if the event is just action for the sake of action, then it's a problem. Because action at the beginning needs to serve a narrative purpose. It sets an expectation for the audience, and not following through will likely leave a reader feeling uninterested. For example, if you have a sword fight, but then follow it up with a time skip to days before and an hour of discussing the kingdom's tax code, then an audience will feel more annoyed since the sword fight set an expectation of high stakes and adventure. Tales of the Neon Sea isn't as bad as that, but it's not great in how it goes from high action to a time skip. He's suddenly in his bed days before the event, and then he lingers on slow exploration, puzzles, and body switching with a cat. The pace definitely slows way down after the intro. The events also become highly random on top of slow, and a plot jumping around too much also makes explaining it lengthy. I wrote out a paragraph for the review here, but even I got bored rereading it, so though I'm not a great poet, here's my attempt at making a summary of the random plot for the first few hours of the game as short as possible, while also still trying to show how jumpy it is. Deadly threat. I want my hat. Easy puzzles. I'm a cat. Easy puzzles. Human once more. Days ago. What happened before? Easy puzzles. I'm a cat. Get to see how he did that. Human again. Puzzles to solve. But then there's a wait to resolve. The bar is far, so go by car. Alcoholics drink. Har har har. Drug a woman. But it's cool. Leaving her would be too cruel. Treasure in the cellar? No, just an old feller. Wake to ache and feeling pain. Potion make. Put drugs in brain. Feeling well? Revisit store. But he says, go explore. Go on a bus. Somewhere new. There are more puzzles to do. That's not exactly a tense detective tale, which the opening implied it would be. It's also not a fun romp, given the awkward pacing of the story, elements that annoyed me, and the poor protagonist. While the events summarized there sound silly, remember that they're not nearly as brief as a cruddy poem. It took about 3 hours and 20 minutes for all of that to happen, not less than a minute or two. This means that in context, it's not as frolicsome, just jumpy. After a few hours, I felt done with it, but I was still a little curious about what the big mystery was, so I looked up info and watched a walkthrough video of the ending. I won't give spoilers, but I will say that I didn't think that the ending was very surprising or impressive. It also ends on a cliffhanger of sorts, leaving the tale open to a sequel, because you find out that the big bad was just part of the darkness inside darkness. And yes, that is an actual quote. The full line is, "There is darkness inside darkness. I am not the only one who wants to turn this ugly world upside down." The entire game's supposed to take 10 to 15 hours to beat, but I wasn't into it enough to spend more of my time on it. The writing was too jumpy with its time skips and man-cat switches. The story's tone was erratic and non-immersive. Some elements were bothersome. The puzzles weren't being fun, and I disliked the protagonist. That left me with nothing to feel interested in, nothing to root for. I think that the story's concept was okay, but that it just wasn't executed well, and the ending didn't redeem it enough to make me want to play the rest through either. In fact, even when it comes to a sense of tension, the ending doesn't even match the intro. It's a puzzle that the player has to solve, which isn't nearly as tense. That's rather anticlimactic. The look and the sound. The game has a glowy, cyberpunk look, and I generally like that sort of aesthetic. And for pixel graphics, it does look pretty good. The music was also a positive. It added to the setting, and while it did blend in well, it also stood out in a nice way sometimes. The title song in particular was noticeably well done. It reminded me of songs that I've heard when I have a good music mix going on YouTube. So while I wouldn't go hunt down the song on its own, if it were put into a mix, I'd listen to it.